had not slept in 4 days. Her eyes burned with exhaustion, and her arms ached from holding her infant son, but she could not put him down, would not stop crying. The sound filled the small cabin of the transport ship like a sharp blade cutting through the air. It echoed off the metal walls and seemed to grow louder with every passing hour. She walked back and forth across the tiny room, bouncing gently, humming the harmonic tones that every mother learned from childhood. These frequencies were supposed to calm infants. They had worked for generations. They had worked for her own mother and her mother before that, but they did not work for. They were a tall and slender species with pale blue skin that seemed to glow faintly in dim light. Their eyes were large and dark, designed to see in the shadowy forests of there. Their ears were extremely sensitive, capable of hearing sounds that other species could not detect. This sensitivity was usually a gift, but now it was a curse. Every cry from felt like a needle pushing into his skull. She had tried everything. She had adjusted the temperature in the cabin to match the warmth of there. She had played the recorded sounds of the great singing trees that infants found soothing. She had released calming pheromones into the air, the same ones that nurseries on her planet used to keep hundreds of bobbies peaceful. Nothing worked. Elder, the ship's healer, had examined 3 times. Each time he found nothing wrong. The baby was healthy. His heart beat strongly. His lungs were clear. His body temperature was normal. There was no infection, no injury, no explanation for the endless crying. Perhaps the child simply has a difficult temperament, Elder had said during his last visit. His voice had been tired and his patience clearly running thin. Some infants are born this way. He will grow out of it. But knew that was not true. Had been a peaceful baby for the first 2 months of his life. He had slept through the night and cooed happily during the day. The crying had started only after they left there, only after had packed their few belongings and boarded this transport ship to start a new life far away from everything she had known. The door to her cabin opened and Commander stepped inside. He was a tall male with darker blue skin and eyes that seemed permanently narrowed in disapproval. He had been patient for the first 2 days of the journey, but his patience had run out. He said, his voice tight with barely controlled frustration, "The crew cannot function. The crying is affecting everyone on this ship. We have tried to be understanding of your situation, but this cannot continue." "I am trying," said. Her voice cracked and she felt tears building behind her eyes. "I have tried everything. I do not know what else to do." Looked at the crying infant in her arms. His expression softened slightly, but only slightly. "We are approaching the border station called Harmony. It is a joint medical facility operated by several species, including humans. We must stop there for emergency repairs anyway. You will take the child to their medical bay." Felt a chill run through her body. Humans. She had heard stories about them since she was a child. They came from a brutal world where everything tried to kill them. They were said to be loud and aggressive, with strange small eyes and skin in disturbing warm colors. Some stories said they ate the flesh of animals. Others said they had fought wars among themselves for thousands of years. "I do not think that is wise," said quietly. "Surely there is a facility nearby that could help." "The nearest station is 12 days away," replied. "This crew will not survive 12 more days of this. You will go to the human station. That is not a request." Wanted to argue, but she had no strength left. She had not eaten a proper meal since started crying. She had not showered or changed her clothes. She was running on nothing but a mother's desperate need to help her child. "I understand," she whispered. The transport ship docked at Harmony Station 3 hours later, stood at the airlock with screaming in her arms, waiting for the doors to open. Her heart pounded with fear. She had never been this close to humans before. She had never wanted to be. The doors slid apart and she stepped into a wide corridor filled with bright light. The station was cleaner than she expected, with white walls and soft blue lighting that was almost pleasant. Signs in multiple languages pointed toward different sections. She saw symbols she recognized and many she did not. She walked slowly, following the signs toward the medical bay. Other beings passed her in the corridor. Some were species she knew. Others were strange and unfamiliar. A few of them looked at her with sympathy. Most of them looked at her with annoyance. The crying was just as painful to other species as it was to the... Then she saw one. A human female stood at the end of the corridor, looking directly at her. The human had pale pinkish skin and hair the color of dark wood. Her eyes were small and round, a strange greenish color that had never seen before. She wore a white uniform with some kind of symbol on the chest. Froze continued to scream. The human began walking toward her and felt every instinct in her body telling her to run. But her legs would not move. She was too tired, too scared, too desperate. She simply stood there, holding her crying child, and waited to see what the human would do. The human stopped a few steps away and held up her hands, showing her palms. Her movements were slow and careful, like someone approaching a frightened animal. When she spoke, her voice was softer than had expected. "Hello," the human said. "My name is Lucy. I'm a nurse here. Can I help you?" Looked into the strange round eyes of the human and saw something she did not expect. She saw kindness. She saw concern. She saw the look of someone who genuinely wanted to help. "My baby," said, her voice breaking. "He will not stop crying. I do not know what is wrong. Please, I have tried everything. Please help me." The human named Lucy nodded slowly and saw something in her expression that looked almost like recognition. As if she had seen this situation before, as if she might actually know what to do. "Come with me," Lucy said gently. "Let me take a look at him." And because had nothing left to lose, she followed the human into the medical bay. The medical bay was not what expected. She had imagined cold metal tables and harsh lights, the kind of place where creatures were cut open and studied. Instead, she found a warm and welcoming space with soft lighting and comfortable chairs. Plants grew in pots along the windows, real living plants that reminded her of home. Lucy led her to a small examination room and gestured for her to sit down, lowered herself into a chair that was surprisingly comfortable, still holding against her chest. The baby continued to cry, his small body shaking with each wail. "How long has he been crying like this?" Lucy asked. She pulled a small rolling stool closer and sat down its level, keeping a respectful distance. "4 days," said. "He cries and cries. He stops only when he is too exhausted to continue, and then he sleeps for a few minutes before starting again." Lucy nodded slowly. Her face showed no judgment, no frustration, only calm attention. "Has anything changed recently? Anything different in his life or your life?" Hesitated. The question touched on pain that she had been trying to ignore. "We left our 8 days ago. We are traveling to a colony on the far side of space. I am starting a new life there." "Just you and the baby?" "Yes," his voice dropped to a whisper. "My partner died 2 months ago. There was an accident at his work. It was very sudden." Lucy's expression softened even further. "I am very sorry for your loss." Nodded but said nothing. She did not trust herself to speak about without breaking down completely. "May I examine him?" Lucy asked. "I will be very gentle, I promise." Looked down at. His face was wet with tears and his mouth was open in another endless scream. What more harm could come to him? She had already failed to help him. Perhaps this strange human could do what she could not. "Yes," said, "please." Lucy moved closer and held out her hands, carefully transferred into the human's arms, watching every movement with anxious eyes. Lucy held the baby with obvious experience, supporting his head and cradling his small body against her chest. "Hello there, little one," Lucy said softly. Her voice had changed, becoming higher and gentler in a way that did not understand. "You have been having a hard time, have you not?" Continued to cry, but noticed something strange. The baby was looking at Lucy with wide eyes, even as he screamed. There was something in his expression that almost looked like curiosity. Lucy examined him carefully, checking his eyes and ears, feeling his belly, looking at his skin. She moved slowly and spoke constantly in that soft, gentle voice. "You are a beautiful baby. Yes, you are. Such big dark eyes, such pretty blue skin." "The healer on our ship has examined him many times," said. "He found nothing wrong." "I believe you," Lucy said. She was still holding, still looking at him with that focused attention. "Sometimes the problem is not something we can see with our instruments." "What do you mean?" Lucy looked up at. "Can you tell me about how mothers care for their bobbies? I want to understand your culture." The question surprised. No one had asked her about customs before. "We use harmonic frequencies to soothe them. Every mother learns the tones from her own mother. We also control the temperature and use calming pheromones. On our bobbies are usually raised in communal nurseries where they are surrounded by other infants and many caregivers. So there is always someone nearby, always sounds and activity. Yes, infants do not do well in silence or isolation. That is why the nurseries are always full of gentle noise and movement." Lucy nodded as if this confirmed something she had been thinking. "And since you left has been in a nursery, has he been around other bobbies or caregivers?" "No," felt a sudden wave of guilt. "It has been just the two of us. I could not afford to bring anyone else. I have been caring for him alone." "And how have you been holding him? Can you show me?" Took back from Lucy and demonstrated how she usually held him. She cradled him in her arms with some space between his body and her chest, the way mothers were taught. Physical distance was considered proper. Too much contact was thought to make children weak and dependent. Lucy watched carefully. Then she asked a question that confused completely. "Do you ever hold him against your chest, skin to skin, so he can feel your heartbeat?" "No," said. "That is not our way. We believe that infants should learn independence early. Too much physical contact is discouraged." Lucy was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke carefully, choosing her words with obvious thought. "I think I might know what is wrong with your baby, but I need to try something first. Will you trust me?" Looked at this human, this creature from a violent world that she had been taught to fear. Lucy's eyes were kind. Her hands were gentle. Her voice was soft. Nothing about her matched the stories had heard. "Yes," said, "I trust you." Lucy reached out and took back into her arms. But this time, she did something different. She held him close against her chest, pressing his small body firmly against her own. Then she began to do something that had never seen before. She hummed. It was not the precise harmonic frequencies that used. It was imperfect and slightly off-key, a simple melody that wandered up and down without any clear pattern. Lucy swayed gently back and forth as she hummed, her eyes half closed, her hand patting back in a slow rhythm. And then something impossible happened. "Stop crying." The silence was so sudden and so complete that thought something terrible had happened. She leaned forward in panic, reaching for her baby. "Wait," Lucy said softly, "look at him." Looked was not hurt. He was not unconscious. He was simply quiet, his large dark eyes staring up at Lucy's face with an expression of wonder. His small mouth was closed. His body was relaxed. For the first time in 4 days, he was at peace. Hal whispered, "How did you do that?" Lucy smiled gently and continued to sway within her arms. Human bobbies need touch to survive. Without physical contact, without the feeling of a heartbeat and the warmth of another body, they become sick. They fail to grow. Sometimes they die. Felt her heart's clench at those words. Die from lack of touch. Yes, we call it failure to thrive. Our scientists discovered long ago that human infants need physical contact as much as they need food and water. It is not a weakness. It is how we are made. Lucy looked down at, who was now making soft cooing sounds, his tiny fingers reaching up toward her face. "I think your baby needed the same thing. He needed to feel a heartbeat. He needed warmth and closeness and the vibration of a voice through someone's chest. Your culture may not practice this, but that does not mean your children do not need it. Stared at her son, peaceful for the first time in days, and felt tears streaming down her face. I did not know, she said. I did not know he needed that. I was trying so hard to do everything right. I was trying to follow our traditions. Lucy reached out with one hand and touched his arm gently. You were doing your best. You are a good mother. Sometimes we just need to learn new things. She held out toward, here, hold him like I did, close to your chest. Let him feel your heartbeat. Took her son and pulled him close, pressing him against her body in a way she had never done before. She felt his small warmth against her skin, felt his tiny hearts beating beside her own. She began to hum, copying the simple melody Lucy had used. Looked up at her and made a sound she had not heard in days. He laughed. And exhausted and overwhelmed and grateful beyond words, began to cry. Lucy sat with for a long time, watching the mother hold her now peaceful infant. The change was remarkable. Just minutes ago, had been screaming with all the force his tiny body could produce. Now he was calm, his large dark eyes slowly closing as sleep finally claimed him. He is sleeping, whispered, as if saying the words too loudly might break the spell. He is actually sleeping. He is exhausted, Lucy said softly, just like you. When was the last time you slept? Had to think about the question. The days had blurred together in a haze of crying and desperation. I do not remember, maybe 4 days ago, maybe 5. Lucy frowned with concern. You need rest. Both of you do. I can arrange for you to stay here in the medical bay tonight. We have comfortable rooms for patients who need observation. I cannot impose on you, said. You have already done so much. It is not an imposition. It is my job. Lucy smiled warmly. Besides, I would like to teach you more about how to care for if you are willing to learn. Looked down at her sleeping son. His small face was relaxed and peaceful, his breathing slow and steady. She had spent 4 days terrified that something was seriously wrong with him, and the answer had been so simple. He just needed to be held. Why does this work? She asked. Why does touching him make such a difference? Lucy leaned back in her chair and considered the question. On Earth, where humans come from, life is very difficult. Our world has extreme temperatures, dangerous animals, natural disasters, and countless diseases. For most of our history, survival was never guaranteed. Nodded slowly. She had heard stories about the human. The other species called it a death world, a place so hostile that they could not understand how any intelligent life could develop there. Because of these dangers, Lucy continued, human children are born very helpless. They cannot walk or feed themselves or protect themselves in any way. They depend completely on their parents for survival. This dependency lasts for many years. Children are similar, said. They cannot care for themselves until they are much older. Yes, but there is an important difference. Human parents learned very early that physical contact was essential for their bodies to survive. When a baby is held against its mother's chest, it can hear her heartbeat. That sound is the first thing a human baby hears in the womb. It is the sound of safety, of love, of home. Lucy gestured toward sleeping peacefully in his arms. When your son is pressed against your chest, he can feel your heartbeat. He can feel your warmth. He can sense that he is not alone. These things tell his body that he is safe, that someone is protecting him. Thought about her own upbringing, about the nurseries where Bobbies were raised surrounded by sounds and pheromones but rarely touched. Our way is so different. We thought that too much contact would make children weak. Every culture finds its own path, Lucy said gently. I am not saying your way is wrong, but your son has been through a lot. He lost his father. He left his home. He has been surrounded by strangers in a small metal ship. Perhaps he needs more comfort than usual right now. The words hit like a wave. She had been so focused on her own grief, on the practical challenges of starting a new life, that she had not thought about how the changes might affect. He was just a baby, but he was not blind to the world around him. He had sensed the absence of his father. He had felt his mother's sadness. He had known that something was wrong. "I have been failing him," whispered. "I have been so lost in my own pain that I forgot to comfort him." Lucy shook her head firmly. "No, you have been surviving. You lost your partner and you kept going. You took care of your son even when you had no strength left. You traveled across space to build a new life for both of you. That is not failure. That is courage." Felt tears welling up again. She had cried more in the past hour than she had in the 2 months since died, but these tears felt different. They felt like release rather than pain. "On Earth," Lucy said, "we have a saying. It takes a village to raise a child. It means that parents should not have to do everything alone. They need help from their community, their family, their friends." "We have a similar belief," said. "That is why we have communal nurseries, but I have no community now. I have no one." "You have me," Lucy said simply. "At least for tonight, and tomorrow we can talk about what happens next." A soft knock on the door interrupted them. Lucy stood and opened it to reveal a human male with gray hair and kind eyes behind small glass frames. He wore the same white uniform as Lucy, but with different markings on the chest. "Ben Carter," Lucy said. "This is and her son. This is Dr. Ben Carter. He specializes in treating species from different worlds." Ben entered the room slowly, keeping his movements calm and unthreatening. "I heard we had an infant with a mysterious crying problem. It seems you have already solved the mystery." "It was touch," Lucy said. "He needed physical contact." Ben nodded thoughtfully. "That makes sense. I have read about similar cases in other species. The need for physical comfort seems to be more universal than we thought." He looked at with gentle curiosity. "May I examine your son? I want to make sure he is healthy in every other way." Hesitated, was finally sleeping, and she did not want to disturb him, but she also wanted to be certain that nothing else was wrong. "You can examine him while he sleeps," Ben said, sensing her worry. "I will be very gentle. He will not even know I am there." Agreed, and Ben performed a thorough but careful examination. He used instruments that did not recognize, devices that hummed softly and projected images into the air. Through it all, remained asleep, his small body limp with exhaustion. "He is perfectly healthy," Ben announced finally. "His hearts are strong, his lungs are clear, his brain activity is normal. He was simply stressed and overstimulated. Now that he is getting the comfort he needs, he should recover quickly." Relief flooded through so strongly that she almost laughed. Thank you both." Ben smiled and exchanged a look with Lucy. "I recommend that mother and baby stay here tonight for observation. Needs rest as badly as does." "I was just suggesting the same thing," Lucy said. A thought occurred too. "The ship I arrived on. Commander said they would leave as soon as repairs were complete. If I stay here, they might leave without me." "I will speak to the commander," Ben said. "I am sure he will understand that you need medical care. If not, we can arrange other transportation for you." Wanted to protest, to insist that she did not want to be any more trouble, but she was so tired. Her body ached and her mind felt cloudy. The idea of staying in this warm, safe place, surrounded by people who wanted to help her, was too appealing to resist. "Thank you," she said again. "I do not know how I will ever repay your kindness." Lucy reached out and squeezed her hand gently. "You do not have to repay anything, just rest. Take care of yourself and your son. That is all we want." They helped move to a private room with a soft bed and dim lighting. She lay down with still pressed against her chest, feeling his small heartbeat against her own. Within minutes, she was asleep. She dreamed of. He was holding the way Lucy had shown her, close to his chest, humming a soft melody. He looked up at and smiled. "You are doing well," he said. "I am proud of you." When woke up, her face was wet with tears. But for the first time since died, they were tears of peace rather than pain. Commander stood at the entrance of the medical bay, his arms folded across his chest, and his expression dark with impatience. He had been waiting for 2 hours to speak with someone about, and his patience was wearing thin. The transport ship's repairs were complete. His crew was rested and ready to depart. But the woman with the crying baby had not returned, and when he tried to contact her, he was told she was under medical observation. Commander. He turned to see a human female approaching. She was young, with dark hair pulled back from her face and warm brown skin. Her uniform was different from the medical staff, marked with symbols he did not recognize. She said. I am the cultural liaison officer for this station. I understand you have questions about one of your passengers. I have more than questions, said sharply. I have a ship waiting to leave and a passenger who has decided to stay behind without informing me. Nodded calmly, apparently unbothered by his tone, and her son are receiving medical care. Her baby was suffering from a condition that required treatment. She was not able to contact you because she has been resting. What condition? The healer on my ship examined that child repeatedly. There was nothing wrong with him except a bad temperament. His expression shifted slightly, becoming more serious. The child was not sick in a way your healer would recognize. He was experiencing distress caused by lack of physical contact. Human doctors call it failure to thrive. Without intervention, it can lead to serious developmental problems. Stared at her. Lack of physical contact. That is absurd. The child was being held constantly. His mother never put him down. She was holding him at a distance, explained. Cultural practices encourage physical separation between mothers and infants, but this particular baby needed something more. He needed to feel his mother's heartbeat to be pressed against her chest. Once he received that contact, he stopped crying immediately. Was silent for a long moment. He thought about, exhausted and desperate, carrying her screaming infant through the corridors of his ship. He thought about how the entire crew had been on the edge of breaking down from the constant noise. And he thought about how quickly everything had changed once she arrived at this human station. A human solved this problem, he asked. A human knew what our healer did not. Humans have a great deal of experience with infant care, said. Our children are born very helpless and require years of constant attention. We have learned through painful experience what babies need to survive. She gestured for to follow her, and against his better judgment he did. She led him through the medical bay to a window that looked into one of the patient rooms. Through the glass, he could see sitting in a comfortable chair, holding against her chest. The baby was awake but calm, his large eyes looking up at his mother's face. Was humming softly, a strange melody that sounded nothing like harmonics. She has been like this for hours, said quietly. The baby has not cried once. Watched the scene in silence. He had known for only a few days, but he had seen the desperation in her eyes when she boarded his ship. He had heard the raw pain in her voice when she apologized again and again for her baby's crying. She had been breaking apart, held together only by the need to care for her child. Now she looked different, still tired, still worn down by grief and exhaustion, but something had changed. There was a peace in her expression that had not been there before. Why would humans share this knowledge with us? Asked. Our species have had very little contact. We are strangers to each other. Turned to face him. Commander, what do you know about humans? Considered the question. I know you come from a harsh world. I know your history is filled with war and violence. I know that many species consider you dangerous and unpredictable. All of that is true, said. Earth is a difficult place. Our ancestors struggled to survive, and that struggle shaped who we became. But there is something else that shaped us, something that people often forget. She paused, choosing her words carefully. Humans survived because we learned to care for each other. On a world where everything was trying to kill us, we discovered that cooperation was the only path to survival. We protected our children. We helped our neighbors. We built communities where everyone looked after everyone else. Found this difficult to believe. Your history says otherwise. You have fought wars among yourselves for thousands of years. Yes, we have. Humans are capable of terrible violence, but we are also capable of incredible kindness. The same instincts that drive us to protect our own families can extend to strangers, to other species, to anyone who needs help. She looked back through the window at him. A crying child has no enemies. That is something my grandmother used to say. It means that when a child is in distress, all the barriers between people fall away. It does not matter what species you are, what culture you come from, what conflicts exist between your governments. A crying child reaches something deep inside us, something that transcends all of that. Thought about his own children, grown now, and living their own lives on distant worlds. He remembered holding them when they were small, remembered the fierce protective instinct that had filled him whenever they cried. "This nurse," he said slowly, "the one who helped, she did not have to do that. Our species are not allies. She could have ignored the problem." Lucy Warren does not ignore suffering, said. It is not in her nature, and that is true of most humans. We are drawn to help those in need, especially children. It is how we are made. Was quiet for a long time. He watched through the window, watched her hold her sleeping baby with such tenderness. He thought about all the things he had heard about humans, all the warnings and fears that his people shared about this strange, aggressive species. And then he thought about what he was seeing with his own eyes. A human nurse had succeeded where a healer had failed. She had done it with nothing more than gentle touch and a simple melody. She had asked for nothing in return. "I was wrong about humans," said finally. The words were difficult to say, but they felt true. "I was taught to fear you. I was taught that your kindness always hides a motive, but what I see here is genuine care for a stranger." Smiled warmly. "Commander, humans are complicated. We can be violent and selfish and cruel, but we can also be generous and brave and loving. What matters is which side of ourselves we choose to express." She placed a hand on his arm, a gesture of connection that surprised him with its warmth. "Needed help. Lucy gave it. That is the only story here." Nodded slowly. His ship could wait another few hours. His schedule could be adjusted. What mattered was that a mother and child under his care had found healing in this place. "Tell she can take as much time as she needs," he said. "I will wait for her, and when she is ready, I will make sure she reaches her destination safely." Smile grew wider. "I will tell her, thank you, Commander." As walked back toward the docking bay, he found himself thinking about the report he would write for the High Council. They would want to know about his stop at this human station, about the interactions between his passengers and the human staff. He would tell them the truth. He would tell them about a crying baby and a desperate mother and a human nurse who knew exactly what to do. He would tell them that humans were not the monsters his people feared. He would tell them that any species that cared so deeply about children deserved to be treated as friends rather than strangers. It was a small thing, perhaps, one report among thousands, but Commander had learned something important today, and he was not going to keep it to himself. The galaxy needed to know that humans were worth knowing. 3 days passed on Harmony Station, 3 days of peace that had not expected to find. She slept more than she had in months. She ate proper meals for the first time since leaving her. She watched her son grow calm and happy in a way she had feared might never happen. Lucy visited her every day, sometimes for hours at a time. They talked about many things. Lucy asked about culture, about their music and their food and their beliefs about family. Asked about Earth, about the oceans and mountains and strange creatures that Lucy described with obvious love. They were so different, these two mothers from opposite ends of the galaxy, and yet they understood each other in ways that transcended species and culture. "I have to leave tomorrow," said on the third evening. "Commander has been very patient, but he cannot delay any longer. His ship has other passengers, other destinations." Lucy nodded. She was sitting on the floor of the medical room playing with. The baby had become fascinated with her, reaching for her face whenever she came close. "I know. I have been trying not to think about it." Smiled sadly. "I will miss you. I have known you for only 3 days, but it feels like we have been friends for much longer." "That is the nature of crisis," Lucy said. "It strips away all the unnecessary things and leaves only what matters. You and I met when you were at your lowest point. There were no walls between us, no pretense, just two people trying to help a baby." Grabbed Lucy's finger and pulled it toward his mouth. She laughed and gently redirected him toward a soft toy instead. "Before I go," said, "I want to give you something." She reached into the small bag she had brought from the ship and pulled out a crystal. It was about the size of her thumb, clear with a faint blue tint. When Lucy took it, it made a soft humming sound, a gentle harmonic tone that seemed to resonate in the air. "This is a singing crystal," explained. "My people give them to those who have helped save a child. It is one of our highest honors." Lucy held the crystal up to the light. "It is beautiful, but I did not save. You are his mother. You saved him. I could not have done it without you. You showed me what he needed. You taught me how to hold him, how to comfort him in a way my own culture never taught me." Eyes were wet with tears. "You gave me back my son." Lucy closed her fingers around the crystal and pressed it against her heart. "I will treasure this forever." "You are the first human to receive a singing crystal," said. "I hope you will not be the last." They spent the rest of the evening together, talking and laughing and playing with. Stopped by to say goodbye, and even Ben came to check on them one final time. Realized that she had found something unexpected on this station. She had found friends. The next morning, Commander came to escort back to the ship. He was different than he had been when she first boarded his vessel. His expression was softer, his manner more gentle. He looked at sleeping peacefully in his arms and smiled. "He looks healthy," said. "Very different from the screaming infant who boarded my ship." "He is healthy," agreed, "thanks to the humans." They walked together to the docking bay, where Lucy and were waiting to see them off. The moment felt larger than it should, weighted with meaning that went beyond a simple goodbye. "I want to thank you," said to Lucy, "not just for helping and her son, but for changing my understanding of your species. I came to this station believing that humans were dangerous. I am leaving with a very different perspective." Lucy smiled. "We are dangerous, but we are also kind. It depends on how we are treated." "Then I will make sure we treat you well," bowed his head slightly, a gesture of respect that had never seen him give to anyone outside their species. "I have already sent a report to the High Council recommending that we pursue closer relations with humanity. I do not know if they will listen, but I will keep trying." "That means more than you know," said. "Thank you, Commander." Hugged Lucy tightly, careful not to crush between them. "I will never forget you. I will tell everyone I meet about what you did for us." "Just take care of yourself," Lucy said. "And take care of that beautiful baby. Hold him close every day. Let him feel your love." "I will, I promise." The boarding announcement echoed through the docking bay. It was time to go. Pulled away from Lucy and walked toward the airlock, secure against her chest. At the entrance, she turned back one last time and raised her hand in farewell. Lucy raised her hand in return. Her eyes were bright with tears. The airlock closed, and the ship began to move away from the station. Found a window and watched Harmony grow smaller and smaller until it was just a point of light among the stars. Weeks later, she arrived at her new home on the colony world. It was strange and unfamiliar, nothing like the planet she had left behind. But she was not afraid. She had learned something important during her journey, something that would stay with her forever. She had learned that kindness could come from the most unexpected places. She had learned that the galaxy was full of people who wanted to help, if you were brave enough to ask. And she had learned that the way to heal a broken heart was not to close yourself off from others, but to open yourself up even more. She sent a message to Lucy every week, updating her on progress. The baby was thriving. He laughed constantly and reached for everyone who came near. He loved to be held, loved to feel the heartbeat of anyone who would pick him up. The other mothers on the colony were curious about methods. She taught them what Lucy had taught her, and slowly the culture of the colony began to change. One evening, several months after arriving, received a message from Commander. The High Council had accepted his recommendations. They were opening formal diplomatic relations with humanity. A delegation would be sent to Earth to begin discussions. Read the message with tears streaming down her face. She held close and whispered in his ear. "You see, little one, you changed everything. One crying baby, one human nurse, and now our whole species might become friends with theirs." Looked up at her and smiled. He did not understand her words, but he understood her love. That was enough. Outside her window, the stars shone bright and endless. Somewhere out there on a small station called Harmony, a human nurse was probably helping someone else in need. That was what humans did. They helped. They cared. They reached out to strangers and made them feel less alone. Had been taught to fear humans. Now she knew better. Humans were not monsters. They were just people, complicated and flawed and capable of incredible goodness. And somewhere in the vast galaxy, a small singing crystal hummed softly in a human hand, a symbol of gratitude that transcended species and culture, and all the barriers that kept beings apart. It was a small thing, but small things could change the universe. Had learned that too.